put. I am not here to tell you a vibrant story. Our world is so plagued with problems, inequalities, and injustice that it only makes sense for me to talk about it with this black screen behind my back. In fact, in a moment, I'm about to place the entire burden of the world on your shoulders. Yes, I'm addressing you, my fellow schoolmates, and all young people around the world. What if I told you that amidst all this chaos, we might be the only beacon of hope left to solve those issues that matter most to our communities and create a world where everyone lives in peace and harmony and has their own vibrant story to tell? Now, we've often heard adults on TV rattling off about how Gen Z is a generation of problem solvers and that we're going to tackle issues like climate change. But has anyone ever talked to us about how exactly we're going to achieve this? I mean, where do we even start? Hi, I'm Iniya Mahendran, and today I'm here to talk to you about how we, as young, passionate, and curious minds, can create real-time impact on the world around us. This is Gitanjali Rao. When she was 9 years old, a news flash on TV caught her attention. She saw pictures of children who were suffering from drinking lead-contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, and something just didn't seem right to her. A year later, she worked on inventing a device called TEDxTIPS, using carbon nanotube technology and coding, which, when paired with a mobile app, would precisely detect the levels of lead in drinking water. Now, how many of us have come across a problem or disturbing event in our day-to-day lives and said, hey, how can I take action and solve this? Not many of us. And this is why changemakers are so rare. We'll be able to identify numerous problems to solve if only we lend our eyes and ears to listen to what's going on around us. I remember thinking, oh, I have so much of work this week. I have to go to school, attend my coaching classes, fit in some extracurriculars, all while preparing for this TED Talk. But just on another random day, when I was walking to my coaching class, if I had paid a little more attention, maybe I would have noticed that 10-year-old boy working at the tea stall, trying to make ends meet for his family. And this should have prompted me to ask a question. Why does he have to work when I can go to school every day? Why are there inequalities in accessing the basic right to quality education? Notice how there's a stark difference between an impact maker and a silent spectator. This leads us to our first step of problem solving, asking questions. As simple as that. In the next few slides, I'm going to prove to you that the motivation for working for a social cause or for the benefit of someone else is way higher than when we try to do something to satisfy our own needs. And I found that the best way to illustrate this to you is by adapting Simon Sinek's famous golden circle model. So the story goes like this. In 2009, Simon sought to find an answer to a question I find most adults pondering about. And the question goes like this. Why are some businesses more successful than others when they all have access to the same resources and the same employees? Think about it. And Simon said that while every business on this planet knows what they're doing, what their products are, some know how they do it, how they differentiate themselves from their competition. But very few businesses know why they're doing it. And by why, Simon wasn't talking about making money or profits. He was talking about the fact that very few businesses know their purpose or cause or belief. And the same thing applies to people. The ones who know why they're doing every task or challenge they take up, they are the ones who'll be successful. And a simple rule of thumb is to ask yourself, what makes me get up from bed every morning? And boom, there's your why. Now you might be wondering how exactly this applies to problem solving. So here's an example. A year ago, when I was in my 10th grade, my friend and I worked on this subject called global perspectives, in which, as a team, we had to identify a social issue in our community and design a way to solve it. Now, I had the general mindset. This is what my golden circle would look like. I would have started with what? What is the problem? Well, the problem is a lack of awareness about the disease anemia in rural populations. Moving further, how? How does it impact me? If I do the project well, obviously I'll get good grades and build a stunning college profile. But why was I doing it? Now, the thing that made me different was that I had a problem solving mindset. I knew that I had to identify my why first. Why did I care about this issue? I cared because children of my age were malnourished and unable to reach their full potential simply because of a lack of awareness amongst themselves, their families, and rural communities at large. So, once I had identified my why, I had a purpose now. So, how and what we were going to do followed naturally. For how, we decided to write and illustrate a children's storybook called Kani's Dream, in which a little girl called Kani suffers from iron deficiency anemia, which prevents her from achieving her dream of becoming a karate champion. The book also talks about how she overcomes this. So we printed copies of this book in our native language of Tamil, and we distributed it to children from government schools in our locality. We even published it on Amazon to raise funds for our project. But we were surprised by what the impact was. We could see that children were not only eager to change their eating habits, but they also developed a passion for science and STEM in general. So you see, while the general public always goes about their daily challenges and tasks from outside in the golden circle, impact makers and leaders are smart. They go from inside out. So far, we've discussed that impact makers always start by asking questions and are driven by the larger purpose of serving their communities. But how do we decide which problem is worth solving? And fortunately or unfortunately, I can confidently tell you that there is no shortage of problems in our world to choose from. But the easiest way to find a problem worth solving and one that you are truly passionate about is to derive it from your own personal experiences, interactions, and observations. A few weeks back, I had the chance to take a trip to my native place, Kadalur, where I got to interact with other kids of my age studying in a village school there. One of them was Tarika. Remember this name. Now, I'd like to remind you what most of us did during the COVID-19 lockdown. Online classes. And most of the time, we'll be simultaneously scrolling through our phones or even skipping some of them. But you see, Tarika's story was different. She didn't have to worry about making all these tough decisions we had to make because she didn't have the opportunity to attend online classes in the first place. Her family's socioeconomic status meant that they couldn't afford to buy laptops or headsets. She lost her father when she was just 3 years old. And needless to say, she missed out on an entire year of online classes in her 8th grade, but guess what? She worked extremely hard and became the school topper in her class 10 board examinations. But that's not where her story stops, however. Now she enters the 11th grade, fresh and full of cheerful smiles, ready and driven to hit those textbooks to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. Only to realize that private coaching institutions for the National Medical Entrance Exam are way too expensive. And there it is. She might never have the chance to wear the white coat. Now, on doing more research, I found that Tarika's story is an eye-opener to the reality for so many children in our country. And my grandfather was in no different position either. He was the youngest of 3 children and had to discontinue his education at a very young age to help out on the family farm. But he got up one day, persuaded his family to send him to school, and studied hard. Eventually, he ended up getting into college, which is why his children had the chance to go to college too, and which is also why his granddaughter is now having the opportunity to be on the stage giving this speech to you right now. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because if my grandfather hadn't stood up for himself and studied, he wouldn't have been able to help his family. But who is going to stand up for all those children out there who are deprived of these opportunities? And there it is. Just by digging through my personal experiences, I was able to find a problem that I am passionate about solving. Now that we've understood our issue and its root causes, it's time to start brainstorming, a personal favorite of mine. It's time for us to look for good and viable solutions. And a viable solution always addresses the issue from different perspectives. So my local solution to the problem of the educational divide would be to organize a fundraiser where I collect unused electronic devices, recycle them, and use it to cover the tuition fee to connect individual students with coaching centers. And now there are plenty of ways for us to fundraise using our talents and interests. But this might not be a very sustainable option in the long run because it requires a lot of money to sponsor individual children, which is difficult to fundraise as well. So, what other options do we have? Maybe I could approach private educational companies and ask them to provide their study packages at a discounted rate for underprivileged kids. But again, it will be difficult to persuade them as it would amount to a major financial loss for the company. So, now that we've looked at the local perspective, it's time to take a bird's eye view of the problem and consider the global perspective. But before we move on, I want to suggest that it's important to realize all the potential loopholes in each of our solutions because this allows us to be unbiased with our idea and come up with the best possible outcome in the end. Soon, I realized that to impact the most number of students, I needed to advocate for policy change at the government level. The government should consider creating innovative public-private partnerships with these private coaching centers so that they can provide their study materials and digital resources for free for every classroom. Imagine the impact this could have if it's implemented on a large scale. And it's a win-win situation too. Private coaching centers get the promotion and popularity that they want while receiving help from the government to cover their costs. And at the same time, the government is fulfilling its goal of making sure that every child has access to quality education. I'm currently working on all of these aspects in order to turn my solutions into reality. Finally, it's time for the take-home message. If there's one thing I've learned from making this presentation, it's that impact makers are naturally curious and they love challenging existing beliefs by asking questions. They always know why they're doing what they're doing, and this helps them identify a problem they truly care about solving. And most importantly, impact makers always empathize. They don't sympathize. And the difference between the two is that sympathy simply means feeling pity for someone, whereas empathy involves putting ourselves in their shoes and thinking, how would I feel if I was in their place? And we don't stop there. We take a step forward and take action to make a difference. Now I know it's difficult to remember all the 2,000 words I've stuffed into my talk. But I ask you all from the bottom of my heart to remember the last few thoughts I leave you with. It's time for us to wake up. It's time to make every second count. It's time for us to believe that we can make the world a better place. In 2010, Haiti, which is a country in Africa, faced a severe magnitude 7 earthquake, killing millions of people. Here are a few lines from a song called We Are the World, written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie and recorded by over 80 artists across the world to show their support and dedication to the people of Haiti. There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can go on, pretending day by day that someone somehow will soon make a change. We are all a part of God's great big family. It's true, love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making, we're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me. Thank you for listening.